because we put down so much seed for the birds, we've had some of that seed survives and some of it has come up as these beautiful sunflowers, but also some of it has come up as corn. So today, being Lammas, is going to be the culmination of what I think is a lovely way to celebrate Lammas. This is corn grown in our own garden, so I'm doing something with it. These are some of the mature heads of corn. I've already harvested some, but now I need to get the grain out of these. And the process for doing that is a miniaturisation of the agricultural process, and also of course of the kind of work that all our ancestors had to do for thousands of years just in order to eat. So I've got an appropriate container here, and I'm going to take one head of corn and strip the seeds off it, and I can see already the grain is falling out quite naturally because this one's very mature. You can see the grains falling out. So just strip off all the seeds until you have the husks here. No more seeds on there. Throw that away. And now we have to get the rest out. So feel for any hard casings here. There's a few. And then, so I suppose you could say that's the threshing I've done there. So now I've done the threshing, I have to do the winnowing, which is the blowing away of the husks. If I blow into a dish, this shape is ideal, then the light husks that I don't want will blow away. The grains will stay, and also any husks with grain still in them will stay. So here we go. Yep. All of that that's blowing away there. Is what I don't need, and you're left with grains there. I'm going to separate out those other grains now. So the grains that were still in the husks I've separated by hand. There aren't many of them left. The more mature the corn is, the less the few there will be. So we'll start winnowing again. A couple more there. And there. Of course, you probably won't bother with these in a large scale process, but because I'm making so little grain, every little bit counts. And there we are. Just the grain is left. So I'm now dealing with the rest of the grain. Another good threshing technique is just getting it between the thumb and your fingers and just crushing it like this to get the grain out. Do those last few stubborn ones, and then start winnowing again. So there is the final result from those ears of corn you saw earlier, to which I will add what I had already harvested before. So that's our Lammas Day grain. It's not much, but it's enough to make a small bit of bread, and that is what we're going to do now. So, to make bread, first we need to make flour, and for that we need to be able to mill our grain. One pestle and mortar. Windmills, water mills, all these familiar rustic sites were originally just for this purpose. They were used for other things, of course, well, like fulling, for example, for making cloth, but their primary purpose was the manufacture of bread by turning this into a powder. Now then, as delightfully rustic as that looked, and it definitely did, it's not going to crack the grains open so that I can use the pestle and mortar. So instead, I need two things. A dishcloth that I don't value, and a rusty old hammer, because that pestle and mortar is not going to crack them open. So I'll take a few grains at a time just to break the grains open. Fold this over. I considered several techniques, but this seems to be the most logical one. And a few more times. And that's starting to break them open. You can see why I came away from the glass topped table for this, because that might have been a disaster. So what that has done is cracked the grains. It's not flour yet, it's just cracked the grains, and so now the pestle and mortar will probably work. This kind of exercise really does make you respect your ancestors and also realise why things like windmills and water mills were invented. There are skeletons of people, particularly women, from the Neolithic that have been found that had arthritis in their knees, and the evidence seems to suggest that that arthritis was caused from a lifetime of grinding grain between two stones. That's all they did. Or what they spent most of their time doing. The agricultural revolution, the onset of agriculture, certainly increased the food supply, but it also created a lot of hard work. Well, the rural idyll let me down again, but I was determined not to use electrical devices for this. But this is a result, and I'm going to call this very wholemeal flour. I'm sure I could do more, but I'm going to work with what I've got. So, to our extremely wholemeal flour, we add a little bit of salt. This is not going to be risen bread, obviously, it's going to be a flat bread. But one of our South Asian relatives recommended this simple recipe: flour, salt, and then we add a tiny bit of water and start kneading the dough. So my flatbread dough is in a baking tray. I've lined it with some vegetable based spread, so it's completely vegan, this recipe. And now I'm going to put it in the oven at 450 Fahrenheit, that's 230 centigrade, for between 8 and 12 minutes. This is where it could all go wrong. And after 12 minutes in the oven, this is the result. I suspect I might have under-milled my flour, because it looks like a flapjack, but in any case, let us break bread together. Ooh, it's definitely got a kind of, let's try and focus in on this. It actually pulled apart. Now let's try some. That tastes like bread. Slightly salty bread. Not too much. Very wholemeal, very dry as well. Drier than I expected, so the moisture did come out of it. But definitely a bready taste there. Again, the flour needed more milling. The salt does add to it. That is nice. So it's, I suspected it was going to taste like a very salty flapjack, but it doesn't. Definitely definitely the beginnings of bread. And of course, originally, at the beginning of the agricultural revolution, when people started thinking about eating grass, which bits of grass they could eat, I suspect this might have been the kind of thing they initially came up with, before they realised that they had to grind the flour properly. But perfectly edible. Not the best bread, definitely wholemeal. So, having made bread the hard way, happy Lammas to you all.